Welcome back here. One shining moment in the background. Oh, it's fantastic. It is official. The 2022-23 college basketball season has come to a close with UConn beating San Diego State 76-59, winning their first title since 2014, the fifth title in program history, tied for fourth most all time in NCAA annals, as they like to say. Danny Cahalan, Ryan Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Join us now. He did his GA years under John Beeline at the University of Michigan. He is a Concordia alum. That's where he played his college shooty hoops. And now he's an assistant for the Ohio Bobcats. Our good friend, the coach, Kyle Barlow. Find him on Twitter at Kyle Barlow4. Coach Barlow, good morning to you. Rise and shine. How the hell are you this morning?
Great morning. March Madness is over. And, I saw a tweet this morning, and I thought it was very accurate. And it said, March Madness is like a bachelor party. On day one, everybody's full of energy doing crazy stuff. And by the end, it's kind of a slow march to the end where it's finally like, all right, let's just do this last day. It's a formality. Let's get it over with. That's what it felt like because UConn won by a combined 116 points this NCAA tournament. Second only behind the 96 Kentucky team, which was 129 combined points of victory throughout the tournament, which is ridiculous. If you remember that Kentucky team, that's the one Rick Pitino famously said, my 6 through 10 would have won the national championship.
Wow. Oh, Rick Pitino. Look at him now. St. John's. Well, I mean, UConn was an absolute wrecking machine. I asked you, 2 weeks ago, if anybody could stop them, and we were exchanging some words last night, and it was like, UConn by 100. I'm glad they took care of business and put it away early so I could get to bed.
The whole East Coast said, you know what, by halftime, we knew the outcome of this game. San Diego State came out and they hit 2 to 3 really tough shots. And I'm like, wow, this might be one for the ages because those are not good shots. But, the thing about when you shoot tough shots, they don't go in. They go in at about a 23% clip. That's what San Diego State shot from three. And a 32% clip, that's what they shot from the floor. And then they had 7 assists and 13 turnovers. That right there is not a good game. But I think a lot of the credit, I think all the credit goes to UConn. I don't think San Diego State showed up and just, played a bleep game in the national championship. I think UConn was making them shoot tough shot after tough shot, and that's reflected by the field goal percentage, by the assist and turnover as well. Like, really just a fantastic defensive performance by UConn.
When I saw Danny Hurley's comments, he was there with Tracy down on the court, Jim Nance. Let's go to Tracy for hello friends, and she's like, coach, blah blah blah, and he's like, we should be up 20 right now, really. And I was like, yeah, this thing is over. My man is upset that they're not up 20 at halftime of the national championship game. We missed some layups. Like, oh, okay, coach. But when you look at all right, Miami and UConn, high majors, that right side of the bracket, whatever. San Diego State making it to the championship game out of the Mountain West, and FAU making it to the Final Four out of Conference USA. Am I looking at this sunny side up? Am I 2 glasses way too half full right now? But for conferences that are quote-unquote mid-majors, is this not a good thing for all mid-majors across the board? Like, look at how far these two made it. Like Conference USA, the Mountain West, the MAC, the Sun Belt, and maybe I'm comparing it more towards football terms, right? But that's how I see things. There's Power 5 in football. There's Group of 5 in basketball. There's high major in basketball. There's mid major in basketball. So it's kind of my comparison. It's not apples to apples, but does it give you a little bit more? I don't know. Does it invigorate the entire mid major landscape here?
And just for that reason that you said, and even Fairleigh Dickinson knocking off Purdue, which is a big reason why FAU was in the Final Four, right? They were a 9 seed, so they had to play Purdue in the first round. Oh, but they got upset, which, has only happened one other time in history. So now FAU doesn't have to beat the 1 seed in their region to get to the Final Four, which take away nothing from them, but it's about time. But I think it's a great thing for mid-majors. I'm just not so sure. I'm not so optimistic it's going to happen again. Especially in this fashion with 2 quote-unquote mid-majors. The Big West, call it what it is. I don't know if that's a mid-major league, but people call it a mid-major. But FAU definitely is. But, yeah, you look at that. I'm not so sure it's going to happen again because of all the landscape of if you have really good mid-major players, chances are you're going to lose them to a high-major program just the way it's going, or the NBA. and with the transfer portal and with NIL, because the NIL money at the high majors, significantly more. So, people say, well, NIL and transfer portal is going to ruin college basketball, but look at this Final Four. No blue bloods. Isn't this great? I'm not so sure that this is an aberration outside of the NIL and transfer portal argument. Sometimes we just have weird Final Fours. Remember, we had one year, it was like LSU, George Mason, VCU, and I forget who the other team was, the team that ended up winning it. So, you look at Final Fours like that, I think it happens, man. It's about matchups, and, you don't have to beat a team in a best-of-7 series. And a best-of-7 series, more times than not, Purdue's going to beat Fairleigh Dickinson. I think we all agree with that. But you know what? That's the beauty of this tournament. Sometimes we don't get the best team in college basketball winning the championship. We might get the best team at its time, or the team that had the best matchups going on, or who got hot. And I think UConn, after losing 6 of 8 in January, they certainly played like the best team in the country for the last 2 months.
Coach, it was brought to my attention. And I think it was USDA Scott, avid listener and caller of the show, and he was talking about NIL. I hate the fact that we're calling this NIL. Where are the sponsorship deals? Where is the use my name, image, and likeness instead of where is my checkbook, right? I mean, it's straight up, it's pay for play. I'll pay you to come here and play. We have no salary cap, so as you mentioned, the high majors can feast because they have all the resources and all the boosters and all the printing presses of dollars that they could potentially need. I mean, look at what Isaiah Wong was making down there at Miami. What was it, $200,000 a year or $400,000 a year or something crazy? Just like unbelievable. But that is, how much do you think, and I think there was Scott's question of, how NIL is going to play, this pay for play is going to play a factor in college basketball. And then I saw Hunter Dickinson's, name entering the transfer portal on Friday. There's 2 parts to me. One, he wants to go try to test the pay for play NIL landscape. He wants to see how much can I make somewhere else, because he's probably going to make more money at the collegiate level for 1 more year than he would trying to play pro basketball anywhere else, unless, somehow, some way he gets picked up by an NBA team and there's a nice deal there. I don't know if that's going to happen, but neither here nor there. Or he's like, hey, I want to try to play on this stage. Like, I got to find a winner in the NIL stuff. That doesn't bother me, testing the free agent waters of pay for play. What does bother me, though, is if he believes that he can't win at Michigan because of the way that this roster is constructed, losing Kobe Buffkin, he probably knew he was leaving, losing Jet Howard, like the cupboards aren't looking real full right now.
I knew if that was the exact reason, but it seems like it would be the reason for Hunter. But, at the end of the day, I think that guys have to be really careful when they go to the transfer portal, because there's been a lot of rumors floating around all the coaches that sometimes these numbers aren't exactly what it seems, and, X and X is getting X amount of money to go to X university. Well, guess what? Sometimes you only end up getting a half or a third of that payment that was, quote-unquote, promised to them through NIL. So guys have to be careful, because there's a lot of those stories that are starting to float around the NCAA. So, yeah, I encourage, for Hunter Dickinson, I get it. And, let's be honest, 2-time academic, all Big Ten, 2-time All-American in the country, first team All Big Ten, all that, Sweet 16, Elite 8, so you got to hand it to him. He's done a lot of work at Michigan. And you know what? In the landscape of the way it is right now, he probably deserves, the right to go look for, just see what's out there, I guess.
Yeah, you test the waters, dip your toe in a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? How concerned? I'm ready to break the glass and hit the button. Like, I think we're in a 5-alarm situation. Like, the house is on fire. You need to call somebody for immediate assistance, right? That's kind of where I'm looking at Michigan's program. You're somebody in the coaching field. You know what it can be like when you add one guy. Maybe there's a youngster that you were high on that nobody else really saw the potential, and boom, he turns into Jason Preston, and then all of a sudden, you're cooking with oil because you saw something in somebody that nobody else did. So there's always the chance that a recruit might come out of nowhere and really give you a boost that you need. Maybe something works out in the transfer portal the way you didn't think. But I'm looking at what's going on in East Lansing. They got the number 3 national recruiting class coming in. And as people are beating down the doors to get into the Breslin, it seems like people are trying to, kick open the doors and get out at Chrysler.
State's traditionally not a school where people do transfer. Their best players do not transfer. You know, their best players usually go to the NBA. And so you look at the whole landscape of college basketball, and I think your better programs, the ones you're going to see winning in the NCAA tournament, the ones you're going to see getting the NCAA tournament, the ones you think are going to have success, are not the ones who are assembling talent. I think they're the ones that are building teams. And if you look at, you know, Kentucky's a great example. I mean, blue blood of all blue bloods. Like, we don't even have to argue that. I think UConn's a blue blood now, but that's for a later conversation. But Kentucky, you know, last 2 years been very underwhelming. You know, I think it has a lot to do with Oscar, who was one of the best players, won the Nation at the Award 2 years ago. But I don't know if that's the way the modern game is played. You look at Severe Wheeler. He ended up getting benched, and he was leading the country in assists at one point last year. So I don't know if it's about assembling talent. I think it's about building a team. And I got to give, you know, Michigan State a lot of credit. While everybody's chasing the portal and everybody's chasing this, they aren't huge portal players traditionally year to year. Yeah, Hauser was a portal guy. But if you look at it, they're saying, okay, everybody's going to chase the portal and transfers and saving those scholarships for that. We're going to assemble some of the best players in the country. And, you know, Coach Izzo and his staff has always been great at building teams throughout a year, throughout a roster and all that. So I think that's where you're going to see your better teams at Cream kind of rise to the top.
That's my biggest concern. That's honestly my biggest concern, because I like the way that you worded that, like acquiring talent. Where you can go out and get every, you know, 5-star super senior, you know, guy's got a 99.8 rating on, you know, Caleb Houston was the highest ranked recruit in Michigan basketball history, according to 24/7 Sports, right? I'm sorry if I didn't think that guy blew the doors off me, right? Like, here's somebody that did, Jaden Ivey, right? Jaden Ivey, watching him in person, I'm like, oh my God, everybody get out of his way. Get out of his way and let him cook, as the kids like to say, right? And this idea that you're just going to go out and get this 5-star, this one and done, add this guy in the portal. Like, you got to build a program from the ground up. Like, you have to be able to recruit every position, and then the next class, you have to be able to bring in depth for those guys that have a year under their belt, so that when those guys that with that year under their belt are juniors and seniors, you've got your next sophomores and juniors, your next freshmen and sophomores coming up the pipeline that understand the program. They can walk into practice. They already know the expectation. They can help lead the younger guys. You can't have a bunch of 18-year-olds out here running around that are uber talented, because it's not going to work. They don't know how to win.
3-year-olds, because everybody else is doing it the other way. And in that utopian society where you build a team that way, that would be great, and that is ideal, and I think that's how everybody would like to do it. But at the end of the day, if you get that said freshman or sophomore, especially at the mid-major level, who's more talented, you know, and sticking out in a good way with his talent, then you're at risk of them transferring to a high major and, you know, testing free agency, putting your toe in the water.
And you guys got poached a couple of times this past year.
And it works just the same way with high major, because if those guys are too good, like a la Jet Howard, you're not getting him back for another year, because he's going to the NBA, right? Kobe Buffkin made a huge sophomore jump, so he's going to the NBA. And then guess what? If you're not that good, then you're going to transfer from a mid-major to go somewhere and play, because you weren't playing. If you're not that good, then you're going to transfer from a high major to go somewhere and play, because you're not playing. So that's the very tricky part about navigating this atmosphere. I think the great coaches have a solid base of homegrown guys. Now it sounds like baseball, where they're going through single A, triple A. But you got your freshmen that you recruited, that you build your culture with, and then you instill one or two key pieces who can, you know, and let's be honest, a lot of guys transfer for a reason. That's something, you know, that we always say, because they're transferring for a reason. And now, is it their fault it didn't work out at the previous school, or is it the coach's fault? Well, the coach is always going to blame the kid when they transfer. The kid's always going to blame the school. So now you might be getting somebody where you thought you were getting, oh, this kid's a 15-point scorer. Well, maybe that's 15 points on a bad team, and bad teams have leading scorers too. So now you have to instill a winning culture in him and break some of these habits. So it's not always as easy as it sounds, and it's not always going to be perfect. But at the end of the day, I'll stand by it, man. The best coaches, the programs that are going to rise to the top are the ones that are going to be building teams, not just assembling talent.
You know, hey, Coach Barlow, how do we go about in what would you like to see in your perfect utopian world? I love that. I love that theory. Right, it makes me feel like I'm watching the film Avatar, and Juwan Howard walks into the scene, but he's all blue. You know what I mean? He's got like national championship rings everywhere. All of a sudden, Michigan's UConn. but in all honesty, if you could fix it, maybe you like it the way it is, maybe you don't like it the way it is. If you could have the opportunity to put Coach Barlow's like pixie dust on this thing and fix this transfer portal thing, how would you go about doing
it? The transfer portal, I think you should be allowed to one-time transfer. I think every other sport, the NCAA pretty much has it, so I think you should be allowed to do it. So I think that's pretty simple. Now, when you get into the ability to transfer twice because of a waiver, every waiver is going to be approved, because the NCAA doesn't want to say, well, you put two buzzwords, and I think we all know what these buzzwords are, on your waiver, and now we can't deny it. Otherwise, we're at risk of being sued. So that's where it's like, okay, the 2-time, 3-time transfer, now we're getting a little ridiculous with it, right? And with the NIL, I think there just needs to be more transparency and more back to the original meaning, more policing of it. Like you said, like we're talking about name, image, and likeness. You should be able to capitalize off your name, image, and likeness. You know, if you look at somebody like Olivia Dunn, the LSU Instagram influencer, right? She can make a lot. She does make a lot of money off of her Instagram. That's her brand. She deserves that. But now you're talking pay to play. You're talking about cash offers who are funneled through, collectives. Like that's not the point of NIL, right? But there's no enforcement with it. So I think just more transparency in that, and let's just keep everything above board honest, because that's funny just saying that out loud, isn't it, Bellino?
Oh man, I tell you what,
that's kind of funny.
Honesty is the best policy. I just try to call it like I see it. We're running out of time. People were all bent out of shape because I said that Caitlin Clark should have been teched for throwing the ball in disgust out of bounds, nowhere near an official. And then they were all in
Yeah. So Kim should have been teched for running on the court and grabbing said official.
She should have been teched by walking in with that suit. What was that suit? Don Cherry's sister? Get out of here. Angel Reese, the taunting. They're following a player around the court for 30 feet, talking smack, doing the thing. Like, I don't like that either. Angel Reese today saying that, no, wait, like it's a joke that Jill Biden said that Iowa should get to go to the White House. That's comical. Like, I don't understand. Honesty is the best policy, Coach. We just call it like we see it here. If I had an NIL deal, let me tell you, the pay for play for Coach Barlow would be insane. 20 years, $200 million. He's our guy. We don't have 20 years. We definitely don't have $200 million. What we do have is you, my friend, and we appreciate you, partner.
Play.
There he goes. Pay for play. Love that guy.